Hello and welcome to the Forrin Podcast, the podcast with foreigners for every flavour. And what flavour are you, Pat?
I'm the tongue twister flavour, Mike. I think you did pretty well with that. There's plenty of F's and O's and P's and pods. Like I'm proud of you for making it this far into the podcast without having to stop for 5 minutes to sort your shit out.
Which is basically what happened. This week, we're going to be continuing on from last week's discussion about language. And but first of all, as we usually do, we're going to start with a news item that you have, Pat.
I do have that. Basically, just following on from last week, we talked about, just to recap, like Mike and I are both foreigners, effectively. We're both from Britain, and Mike lives in Denmark. And
I'm from England, Pat. I'm from England. I'm not from Britain.
Sorry, didn't mean to offend you, boss. And we talked last week, as Mike said, about the importance of language in terms of integrating if you're a foreigner. So I've found a bit of news which is about an association in France called I don't actually know what it's called. Oh yes, I do. It's called l'Association Vilni Humanitaire, which is it's an association in Le Mans, which is where they do the famous car race, I think. I don't know very little about cars. But it's an association that basically gives core is the French word, we're going to talk about that, gives lessons to Ukrainian immigrants, like free of charge, basically.
Which is kind of good.
Yeah, it's really good. Interestingly, it also, the lady that does the core at the association, she's Ukrainian. She's actually a Ukrainian French teacher. Obviously, a lot of Ukrainian people turned up in France after the war started, and she gives both French lessons and Ukrainian lessons, because a lot of the people that were in the association, they really wanted their children to not grow up without the Ukrainian language.
Yeah.
So, as we talked about like last week in France, the French language is critical, and it turned out it pretty much was in Denmark as well. So I just wanted to talk about this association a little bit, because it's pretty interesting. Like I've been involved in this type of thing, but personally, I've taught French to people who've come to France and maybe don't really have access to French lessons and find themselves effectively excluded from society just based on language. But I just thought it was a pretty interesting piece of news to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
So basically what you're saying is what you said last week, that I think only 27,000 out of 300,000 people get kind of state-sponsored French lessons, but everyone from Ukraine gets it for free. Is that what you're saying?
I don't think everyone from Ukraine. I think only there are 12 people in this association. It's literally so rare that people get free French lessons in France, unbelievably, that it actually it's a news story on Actu.fr, and it's
which is what
basically the association was actually set up just as a sort of social center for Ukrainian people who found themselves in France, like as a result of the war. But the fact that it's now become a center of learning for like the French language for Ukrainian people is literally in the news. I mean, like just to recap what I talked about last week, even though like the French state places immense importance on the learning of the French language, etc., you have to pay. There is no free, we call it in France, apprentissage of the French language at all, whereas I believe in Denmark it's effectively free to everyone.
Pretty much, yeah. You have to be registered, have a permit to stay in the country, and if you have that, then it's free. Yeah.
There you go. Also, these lucky people in the association in Le Mans, l'Association Vilni Humanitaire, are able to do lessons in both French and Ukrainian for free. I mean, they did have to sort of get bombed by that Russian bloke, and to be able to get free French lessons. So I guess that's a pretty fair exchange.
Yeah. There should be a kind of a message to all countries. All you need to do is just get bombed. Well, Pat, thanks very much for that news article there. That was.
That's right.
I'm sure the our listeners were just excited as I was.
Yeah,
Listening
I'm
to it.
pretty sure they were as pumped as I
Yeah.
was to learn that 12 Ukrainian people had got some free French lessons, and
Yeah.
the
Well,
fact that that's a news story is just absolutely astonishing to me. But there you go. That's what makes the news in France in terms of the French language and immigration.
so that was it. This was kind of. I mean, I wouldn't say front page news, but this was newsworthy. Was it?
Hmm.
Wow. Okay.
Yep, absolutely. But there you go. Like I said, I've been involved with associations that have done this sort of thing in Montpellier, giving French lessons to people that need them because they're so expensive. And I seriously am a bit baffled that this can even be a necessity. That the state doesn't provide some kind of way for learning the French language for people that really can't speak it at all. It's just absolutely beyond me. But there you are. That's why I wanted to talk about this association in Le Mans.
Yeah. Fair enough. But as we also spoke about last week, Pat and I have. You've been in how long in France, Pat? How long have you been here?
I've been in about 13 and a half years now.
Yeah, and I've been in Denmark since 1999. I think my math says that's 24 years. And we both pretty much speak the language fluently. Would you not say?
I think I'm probably more fluent than you are, Mike.
What, in Danish?
Basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that would be amazing if you were.
No, yeah, I don't know. I would say, I don't know. Like fluency is a bit of a weird thing, isn't it? When you talk about. Like,
well, is there nothing that you can't communicate of how you feel or think to somebody else?
No, absolutely not. No.
I suppose
I understand. Like, but there are some things I don't quite get because they're sort of There's some idiomatic French which is a bit difficult for me. But like it's mainly because obviously I lived in Britain for 36 years, so all of my sort of home social life and blah de blah is in English. So, for example, when people like, I don't know, like shout at their kids or whatever, or their kids are sort of having a bit of a row with their parents or whatever, there'll be a lot of idiomatic language which I might not quite get, for example. But apart from that, no, there's literally nothing I don't understand.
Well, see, the point of me asking that question is that, as we spoke last week, the idea of how language is important to France and how it's important to Denmark, and not just important in terms of national identity, but in terms of integration. You can't really be integrated without the language.
No.
But that brings me on to one of my kind of bugbears, one of my irritations. So this is just going to be a long spiel of me moaning. So if people want to kind of, fast forward 20 minutes and we'll just say goodbye. But because the thing is, when you're in public, when you talk to people, especially as a foreigner, and I'm sure if there are other people who are foreign listening to this, they will be able to relate to it. And maybe even people who aren't kind of, foreigners in their own country have done the same thing. But the idea of when you make a mistake in the language that you're speaking. So if I make a mistake in Danish, like Danish has this system very similar to French, but maybe not so many rules with the French le and la. Mm-hmm. Denmark has it and een. Okay. And there's a certain things that is just, and that's the article. That's like a table is et bord, and a chair is en stole. Right?
Okay.
But sometimes if you're talking fast, or maybe if you've had something to drink or whatever, you can kind of mix that up. You can just make a mistake.
Okay.
But when I make a mistake, I kind of get really self-conscious because I can see the look in the person's eye that I'm talking to. And it's like, I've made a mistake because I'm a foreigner and the language is maybe difficult for me or whatever. But my brain knows I've made the mistake, and I can either go back and correct it or I can just carry on.
Do you find that some people will correct you
for
doing that?
Yeah, often people correct my mistakes. And I think, they say it's because they're trying to help, or they make a joke about it because I'll pull them up on it now. And they'll just say, oh, we're trying to help you be integrated and we're trying to help you be Danish and ha 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 kind of thing. But what it actually does, I don't want to paint myself as some kind of victim here because, it's all fine. It's all good. But what it does is it kind of is slightly irritating because are you listening to what I'm saying or are you listening to how I'm saying it?
Yeah.
And the flip side of it is, just as anyone in any language, if you're in England and you only can speak English, you will make mistakes speaking English. You will say he played good instead of he played well. You will make all kind of mistakes, but they're just mistakes that you've made. Whereas, if that person was speaking to a Dane and a Dane made that mistake with an article, they just sort of let it go because they know that they're Danish and they've made a mistake. But when you're kind of a foreigner speaking the language, it's every mistake you make is always because you're foreign.
I gotta be honest, like with in terms of like making, obviously, like as you said, in France, it's the article, if we're talking about gendered nouns, the articles are le and la, or un or une. I made mistakes like that all the time, and like people, I think probably, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I think probably like the rest of my French is good enough for people to kind of like not care because I've already moved on. I don't really get pulled up on it too much anymore. It's only if I used to a lot actually, like, but like not quite so much anymore. But the if I'm gonna get corrected, it's probably because I've made some kind of I can't formulate a sentence well enough to sort of convey meaning. So like if I'm trying to say something particularly complicated, like, and I just can't do it for whatever reason, I'm sort of struggling a little bit, then somebody will kind of step in to help me. But if I say like le chaise, the chair, instead of la chaise, which is it's feminine, so you say la. People don't really, they might raise an eyebrow, but I don't really get I don't get too much actual correction anymore. I have got quite shirty with a few people, to be honest, over that. You know what I mean? Because for exactly the same reason. It's just like, well, so what? At the end of the day,
yeah, that's it.
It's just I know, like okay, like language is like really important for integration, but like as far as I'm concerned, at the end of the day, language is just a communication system, right? So, like I say, if somebody knows what you're saying, then what's the problem?
Danish is really difficult because it's all the words are really similar and the vowel sounds are really similar. So it's like you've got. I'll give you some. See, I mean, I can't even pronounce it. So if any Danish people are listening, they're going to be laughing at me again now. But there's like, a toll, and that's a train, and then there's tog, which is I took something. I started tog.
Okay.
So there's tog, which is two, and then there's tog, which is fog, and it's just a nightmare. So when you're talking fast, I'm not saying, I'm sitting in the fog traveling to Copenhagen. I'm saying I'm sitting in the train and I might just kind of get the vowel sound wrong. And
but surely there's a massive contextual element to that, right? If no one thinks that you're sort of like traveling to Copenhagen in the fog.
No, yeah. But what I mean is, people will pull me up on it. I mean, it's not like I'll talk to some guy in a shop and he'll start correcting me. I'm sort of, because but I'm just talking about kind of my social circle.
Okay.
So basically, I'm telling the people, through this podcast that I don't like them. That's basically what I'm trying to say. And just no, but I think it's I just think, as I said, for me the main point is that mistakes that are made in a foreign language feels to me like it comes down to the fact that I'm a foreigner making a mistake rather than a native speaker making a mistake.
It kind of does tie into what we were talking about like last week in terms of the fact that you're foreign, like literally like practically negates the fact that you're Mike. Yeah, it's like I definitely do feel this sometimes. It's just like I am perpetually English. There's nothing. There's very little I can do about that. I'm effectively in one way stripped of my identity because like a lot of people do place such a massive emphasis on the role of national identity in their sort of personal makeup. You know what I mean? It's just like I am no longer Patrick. I am English, and that's literally dehumanizing. Do you know what I mean? It's just like it's not funny. I mean, like I say, we've said this like many times before. Effectively, we're kind of on the lucky end of it, really. Obviously, if you're a Muslim, for example, that can be pretty nasty for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually going to start a GoFundMe page to, for my psychological treatment. But no, I know, I absolutely agree with you. But this whole dehumanization kind of thing, and yeah, I think it's a really good point, because the next kind of point really is, and again, I get why people do it, and we'll get into that, but every single social gathering that I'm at and I meet someone for the first time, the 2 minutes will go by and they'll ask me where I'm from.
Yeah.
Every single time for 24 years.
Yeah. It's harsh. It's pretty harsh.
You know, but,
it's kind
it's
of
just
like
a grind, you know.
I do feel like really saying to people, seriously, I just didn't sign up for this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, I like, you know, love your cheese and wine and that. Do you know what I mean? I'm joking. Like, but like, come on. You know, like I've been here for like 13 years. I can speak the language like it's not an issue. You know what I mean? I think obviously the elephant in the room here is that, you know, language isn't actually the issue. You know what I mean? It's the fact that we're not, not French or not Danish that kind of is a bit of a problem, or not a problem for some people. It's just, it's not. I do want to make the point that it's really not like French or Danish people. You know, they're not the only people that do this.
No, I've probably done it myself. I've probably met someone
exactly,
and they've had an accent, and I've said, "Where are you from?" You know.
Yeah. I mean, I went to a wedding last year, and I saw some people I hadn't seen for a long time, and I saw an old friend of mine and his wife, and like, you know, we sort of used to hang around together when they were in college, and you know, I was working on a website, and they I said to her, you know, you haven't changed at all. Do you know what I mean? And she was just like, well, you look pretty French now. It's like, what the fuck does that mean? Do you know what I mean? If you're listening to this, Rachel, you know, I'm just making the point. It doesn't matter.
My mum also says that I look Danish. I dress. I dress Danish now. Which is
what the fuck is that?
Yeah,
absolutely insane. I mean, I've got pretty fluffy hair, and like, you know, I don't know, maybe that's what it is. I look a bit bohemian, and you know, I don't know, like it's I was completely blindsided by it. Do you know what I mean? I really didn't know what to say. I didn't say anything, in fact. I was just like, what? Like, she saw, you know, I had a bit of a blank look on my face, and she was just like, oh, you know, it's not in a bad way. It's like, well, really? I just didn't understand it at all.
Because usually if you say someone looks French, you actually criticise them. So yeah.
Well, yeah, it could be that way. It could be. But no, I do get it. Obviously, I do have to. It's pretty much. I mean, obviously, it is related to language, but I think it just kind of like throws out the fact that I'm not French, because as soon as people hear my accent, they know I'm not French, and I have to say where I'm from.
Yeah, I think we should have those cards. You know, I don't know if you remember in the old days. Sometimes if you were sitting on the train, there'd become some sort of I don't know, mentally ill person, and they'd kind of hand out cards. So you could you could read them, and just in case they acted weirdly, that you wouldn't sort of react.
That's it. Or some kind of badge that you could sew onto your clothing or whatever.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean?
Yeah. Because, and the thing is, I understand, and I've spoken to people about it, obviously, and a lot of them tell me that their intention is obviously good. I mean, no one's sort of saying it to kind of, you know, sort of, you've got an accent.
Yeah.
And it's because they're genuinely interested. And I think Denmark, especially, I don't think France maybe kind of suffers, if that's the right word to use from this, but Denmark is this kind of small country, and Denmark likes to play on the fact that it's this kind of small country. So why would anybody want to be here in our kind of small country, even though they absolutely love their country and think it's amazing? So maybe that's why people want to be here. But yeah, that's a different podcast, really. But so the idea of someone having, and they also see their own language as really difficult. They've told themselves that it's one of the most difficult languages in the world to learn. I don't know where they got it from. I'm sure Cantonese is a little bit tougher, but still. So this is kind of surprise that that you're here, and why are you in our tiny little country? Why haven't you gone to Germany, France, America, whatever? And so, yeah, they're actually genuinely interested in the language. But the thing is, you know, they also say to me, oh, you speak Danish really well. And I'm like, well, I've been here 24 years and I've studied at university and I teach people in Danish. So, yeah, you know, I suppose I do. But again, I don't want to be rude to people, but, just fuck off. No.
I understand. Yeah.
But the thing that it does is that it kind of, if we kind of get a little bit half serious, is that you're at a party, you're enjoying yourself, you're having a drink, you're talking to people you know, and you're just kind of in the moment. But then all of a sudden you meet someone new, and then you're separate from that group. And also, and also I've been to sort of parties or gatherings where, I've actually been introduced as, this is Dave. There's no one in Denmark called Dave, but this is Dave. He's a teacher. This is Peter. He's an engineer. This is Mike. He's from England.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so it basically what they're saying is that my kind of status is that that party is, or that gathering is now defined by the fact that I was just randomly born somewhere that wasn't Denmark.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that what you're describing is is a universal experience for people that weren't born in the country they live in. I know I said this in I'm a student. I'm doing a master's at the University of Nîmes, and the lady that managed my memoir, which was the long piece of work that I did for my course last year, she said that I wrote about this in the research that I did, and she said that she's got an Italian friend who lives in France. So he teaches, well, he's a maître de conférence now at the Sorbonne in Paris, which is pretty heavy shit, to be honest. And he taught us last year, and he's amazing. But he speaks with an Italian accent, obviously, because he's Italian. And the first thing he said to us was, "I'm not French." You know what I mean? And and she said to him that after reading, what I said, that basically his experience is exactly the same. Like this, we talked about this last week. The early years of just endless humiliation, being crushed down to zero, etc., etc., and it never ends. Basically, you are always foreign, and it is pretty harsh. Like I said, I don't want to, play the world's smallest violin, but yeah, it does get pretty grueling after, sort of
24,
20,
or
you're 24 years.
Yeah.
It's just horrible,
And
but it could be worse, you know what I mean?
Oh, cool. It could be a lot worse. Yeah, because But the funny thing is, because people also say to me that because they're so most people find gatherings or parties a bit tedious, and especially the kind of small talk. What do you do for a living, and blah, blah, blah. And so as soon as they sort of see something or hear something different, they'll kind of jump on that, because it then isn't just about like what you do for a living. But for me, the other side of that is that my kind of social status, or my status in that gathering, isn't something that in any way because of something I've done. I haven't earned. I haven't earned that social status.
Yeah.
It's just it's just because I just naturally have it, because I was just randomly born on an island with 65 million people, and
that's
we
it.
stupidly voted to leave Europe.
So this level of exoticism, basically.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, I've got to be honest. Obviously, obviously there is a negative side to this, but like there is also sometimes it has definitely played in my favor to not be French. I've got to be completely honest about that. Sometimes it's actually
you've played the foreigner card.
I've played the foreign card, Mike. I admit that. Yeah. I've done that. I gotta say, it does.
I'll edit it out.
What for all the moaning and griping, I mean, I live in a foreign country. I don't live in my native country because I actually enjoy being a foreigner. I enjoy being something different from everyone else. I actually really like it. I mean, it's something that it's a bit of a sort of like personality trait, but I actually like that collision of.
I understand what you're saying.
I like this sort of like point of opposition. I mean, I'm vegan as well, and
it took you 3 episodes to mention it.
I am vegan, and I'm not going to lie. Like, a massive part of
no one asked you,
a massive part.
Yeah.
That I'm vegan. A big part of that is being able to, when somebody offers me some food, I just sort of like look at it and go, no thanks, I'm vegan. And they just have to, because I love the fact that they then have to question the fact that they're not vegan. Do you know what I mean? And like, it kind of is kind of similar to me having to sort of say, yeah, I'm English kind of thing. Like, so what? There's always this like underlying like, so what? What does that mean to you?
Yeah.
And there is definitely this sort of like reflexive element in the entire argument, because they then have to assess how they feel about that, about the fact that I'm not French.
But it does also raise the question, or maybe a two-part question, is that, is who you are where you're from?
Hmm.
'Cause
Not
that's
for me.
because that's it.
I mean,
That
I
is in a
said that.
way, kind of what is being communicated to you. Again, in a very
Yeah.
friendly, again, a very normal, I've probably done it, everyone does it. But being on the receiving end of it for 24 years, I'll say that again,
Oh yeah, that's it.
24 years, is who I am where I'm from. Because now I've
No,
actually lived
well,
in
no,
Denmark
but
longer than I've lived in the
yeah,
UK.
yeah.
So I'm more Danish than English, whatever that means.
Well, yeah,
But
exactly. Like, I think to be honest, that's a personal choice, isn't it? Like, I mean, I personally, like I said this last week, I don't feel any attachment to Britain. I don't feel that I'm
you miss
English.
it, you love it.
I fucking love it.
You love it, mate.
Like, I don't. I mean, I've met an awful lot of French people that feel exactly the same way. They don't feel French. They don't, really believe in sort of like national politics and blah, blah, blah. And, I'm kind of the same, I know I don't really, I don't believe that I'm inherently English, whatever that means. Obviously during the Brexit debate, there was this massive debate in Britain about what does it mean, Mike, to be British? Sorry, English. What does that mean?
There's a really good discussion we should have on another podcast, which relates to what you're just saying, because there's about the integration test, about what you have to sort of do. Sorry, not integration test, the to get a passport. What's it called? Nationality test. Come on, Pat, help me out.
Okay.
What's it called?
I don't know. Like
Called
naturalization test.
Yeah, the naturalization test or something like that. But anyway, is that there was this debate, not just from the right-wing parties, but how to have questions that the answers would make, I don't know, the adjudicators sort of see that you are Danish in your heart. Danish in your
Oh
heart.
my God.
Dansk i hjertet. Man skal være dansk i hjertet. Danish in your heart. So it's not just enough now just to speak the language and to, I don't know, go to work, get a job.
Your
pay
soul
your taxes.
has to be
That's
Danish.
It. You have to
hell.
be Danish in your heart.
Oh my God, I can't even think about that, Mike. That's just making my head hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know, like, yeah, I mean, let's talk about that at a different time.
Yeah, we will. But it was just,
about,
it was just a nice aside to what you were saying. But I suppose to sort of sum this up, as we said, this conversation is carrying on from last week, and the idea of being foreign and language being the key to not just understanding the culture, but being integrated in the culture. Basically, you're never actually integrated anywhere, really. Because even when you can speak the language completely fluently, people will cotton on to that you ain't from around here, are you, boy? And then so you'll always be foreign, like always.
Yeah, I mean, it does.
Which is interesting,
depends who you mix with, you know what I mean? But like, it's it is an actual thing. There will always be people that that will always see you as a foreigner, and well, I mean, I don't know. I've only done 13 years, Mike. You know what I mean?
You just wait, mate. You wait. Hardest game in the world.
24. I'm just a fucking baby. You know what I mean? I'm a youngster.
So anyway, so to conclude, again, it's not like a huge problem, but I just think it's interesting that learning the language and being here such a long time, the idea of me being foreign is still really prevalent in my life. I don't feel, or I'm, when I say I'm made to feel, that again, that kind of maybe means I want some sympathy, and I don't, but I'm just made to sort of feel foreign. I'm reminded of my foreignness quite regularly. But like you also, I'll also admit, I also play the foreign card, and sometimes I just sort of speak English to my colleagues because I know that they understand it, and it's just easier for me. And as we spoke about last week as well, there is a little bit more of a social status around being English and the English language in Denmark, which there perhaps isn't, or as you said, 50% of people get annoyed by advertising. So there isn't that kind of status. So I can use that status when I want to. So in a way, I'm just a spoiled brat because I just basically I want to use that status when it suits me, But then when everyone, at some kind of social gathering is asking me where I'm from the whole time, I just think, can't you just treat me like everybody else?
Yeah.
So I want my cake and I want to eat it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
I understand it. Effectively, you're basically saying that no matter what you do, you're not like everyone else. It's the same for me. It's exactly the same. But like, to be honest, Mike, and I've got to say this, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah,
You know
I
what
think
mean?
I think all in all, I kind of enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's my podcast, and I'll cry if I want to. So yeah,
Okay.
I think that should wrap it up for this week. But we've taken up far too much of everybody's time, including our own. I just want to say a quick thanks to a friend of mine called Mez, who posted on our Instagram page, which is at Forrin Podcast, that, as he said, he never knew he needed it in his life, this podcast, and now he does. So if you feel like Mez and you want to kind of big us up or say something nice, you can find us on at Forrin Podcast. You can also email us. You can spam our DMs. We're on Twitter. We're everywhere. You can't really escape us. So, but yeah.
I want to say thanks to Maz. Thanks, Maz.
Yeah, thanks, Maz. Great bloke.
Thanks, Maz.
He is. He's
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So that will wrap it up for this week. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks' time, I think.
Thanks to everyone for listening. Thank you. See you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, bye.